Hello, everyone. This is Cassandra Williamson coming to you from Pike County, Kentucky. And this is The Path Forward. And we are located right along the Tug River. If you were listening yesterday, I kind of talked a little bit about that. Right along the Tug River, which separates West Virginia from Kentucky or Kentucky from West Virginia, however what your perspective is. So, yeah, it's been a really hectic day today. A lot of stuff going on. Internet was acting slow. It took me 30 minutes to get that worked back out and figured out, and everything turned back on. So I'm still checking everything to make sure it's all running, and I hope we have a few people watching in the middle of the day. Who knows? We'll just see where it goes from there. Drop in all kinds of stuff happening. Oh my God. So anyway, I think mostly what I'll do is use this as a promo for the show that's coming up this evening on The Path Forward. There's some stuff we could talk about here in the middle of the day, but it's still going to be there in the evening, right? And we're not going to have much of an impact on it regardless of what we decide to do about it. So got up this morning about 5, I guess it was, threw the bed together, put my face on, got everything all ready to roll, and got my medicines for my mom and sister and shots and all that kind of stuff. And, usual routine, clean up the kitchen a little bit, clean up some clothes a little bit, do the laundry a little bit, and then get together a list that I needed to go to the store for. And then also had to take care of, my mom is a survivor, okay, a survivor of a veteran. So she has a claim that she could file that I finally got to do with her this morning early. So we got that in the mail by about noon. So filled out that package. I think that thing was like 17, 18 pages long, but most of that part of it was instructions just for a survivor benefit package with VBA, the Veteran Benefit Administration. And so they could do it quickly as long as you send everything to them. They wanted my dad was in the Navy. He was enlisted in the Navy from 52 to 56, November of 52 through November of 56. And obviously what was going on during that period of time, there was just a little bit of a skirmish over there in the Korean area, but he wasn't involved in that. Dad was actually a steel worker first class when he got out. He helped build platforms that the atomic bombs were tested on out there in Bikini Atoll and the Philippine area, and out there in that part of the Pacific, and all kinds of little islands out there that he built platforms on. And then they would stick a bomb on top of it, on top of that tower, and blow the thing up. But here's the thing, they didn't know the first thing about how damaging that radiation could be, even though this was still, 8 years after they had destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki with the atomic bombs. And they knew the damage that had been incurred there. But the military, U.S. military, decided to put these seamen and soldiers out there around all these explosions, these atomic explosions in the Pacific, and then blow the thing up. But Dad built that platform, and then they would get him to swallow a dosimeter on a little string, to swallow it down, and with a string. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine doing that? Everybody did it, including the general in charge. Everybody did it. But why would they do that? Well, they would stick them on planes and helicopters and then fly back through the radiation cloud with photographic plates. And they could see that the radiation was impacting the photographic plates. And then they'd pull those dosimeters out at the end of their little excursion there through the clouds, the radioactive clouds, and, and count it. And he would actually go with them to count it. And they'd go back to New Mexico and do the counting and the checking and all that kind of stuff. So he would go back to New Mexico, and he told me some stories of things that happened there in New Mexico, walking into this place and watching this metal table disintegrate. And I don't know if he was drunk or not, because Dad had built a moonshine still in the Philippines for the president of the Philippines when he was stationed there. Dad was a wild person. I did get around to finally asking him. I said, Dad, hey, Dad, I have a serious question. I don't know how you're going to answer this, Dad, but I know that you were stationed in the Philippines. I know that you did all this stuff with the atomic weapons. I know all these things. I dug into it when I was in the service and got a bunch of records together. Most of it was redacted, naturally. But I said, Dad, do I have any brothers and sisters in the Philippines? And the thing that I wasn't surprised by this answer because I'd been around long enough at that point in time to figure it out. But he said, I'm not sure. So I guess we'll just have to get all the Filipino people to take DNA tests through Ancestry. That way I can find them and see if they're related. Which would be cool. That's fine. I mean, I understand Dad wasn't married at the time when he was over there. He didn't get married until about 2 years after he got back, I guess. About a year and a half, actually, after he got back. Back to Williamson, West Virginia, where he grew up and was born like me and his family. So, yeah. It's an interesting stories, though, because he always said there were just 21 people in that Operation Red Wing, which is what his part of it was called. But that may have been true with the construction battalion, the CBs. He was in the CBs. But, that operation, though, actually involved thousands and thousands of people, including Army personnel. You know what they did with the Army personnel? Well, the military and all of its infinite wisdom, even after seeing what had happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, put the soldiers on troop carrier ships and positioned them at, 5 miles away, 10 miles away on the ships. And then when they blew the bomb up, the wave would come through and the radiation would hit them. There are thousands of soldiers who were on those ships. And it's like, really? They wanted to see what the impact was on the human body. And they had absolute control over those soldiers and sailors out there, right? And the Marines. They would actually fly into, it's just flabbergasting to me that they would fly into a radiation cloud knowing, look, listen, here's the thing. You've got radiation plates or photographic plates in a box. That's what he said. You got photographic plates in a box on these aircraft, or sometimes a helicopter, but on an aircraft, and you can see that it's impacting the photographic plates, and that it had to get through the ship to get there, that plane. And really, you didn't think there would be an impact on the human body? So there are associations out there for Atomic Veterans of America. Many of them are really getting really up in age. My dad passed away in 97, and he always blamed the disabilities that my youngest sibling has on that. But I'm the rest of us, there are 6. We're all right. Up here in the hills of Eastern Kentucky, don't worry about any of that. It is Hatfield-McCoy feud country. They do chase a pig around here and shoot each other over it, and then get married, usually to their cousins. I know I'm just rambling on and on, but here in the hills of Eastern Kentucky, everybody has these things about what it's like here. There's some beautiful places here. There are really beautiful places here. And the coal mining has basically dwindled down to just a few mines left open. But that's not necessarily because there's no coal there. It's that, there's other things going on in the world. And a lot of the coal has been mined out. And then they started mining coal here when in 1875, before the city of Williamson was even created, in 1895. So, yeah, I mean, they've been mining coal, hauling it out by horses and all that. And then when the railroad came through in 1895, all of that stuff just blossomed and took off, and the population and exploded, and coal dust filled the air. Got in everybody's lungs. It doesn't matter if you went underground or not. If people went underground, got it a lot worse, but everybody else got it too. And that's another case of, why can't you breathe? I don't know. Maybe it's that coal dust. that kind of thing. But there's a lot of good things here, though, right now. And there are ATV trails all over the place. The Hatfield McCoy Trail system goes from into Kentucky and West Virginia. And that's just an amazing thing. They tried to clean up the river. In 1909, the Tug River was considered one of the most polluted and dangerous rivers in the country. But now it's not that, obviously. It's been cleaned up enormously. They used to take the dredges, the coal dredges, and run them through the river to clean them out before they dumped them out near the tracks. Can't imagine that would hurt anything. They just didn't care about the environment much back then, did they? Well, it's not saying a whole heck of a lot. There's still people today doing the same crap. So anyway, there's been a lot going on in the news today. Okay. First thing is, I did a little thing up here. I've got the first one up is from the DOJ, the Department of Justice. Now, you know how they collect crime data, and they like to be able to make that data as best and representative as possible, and to actually gather information that's useful, that can help identify, who the targets are and who's doing what, and those kind of things. Don't you think they would actually like getting that information? You would think that that's the case. They do want every piece of information they could possibly get to help identify the sources and the causes and the targets of crime in this country. The crime data from the Department of Justice. Well, guess what? The appeal is saying today in their article, actually it's on May 5th, I think, DOJ erases trans people from crime data surveys. It says the Justice Department has removed questions about gender identity from the National Crime Victimization Survey, the Survey on Sexual Victimization, and the Survey on Inmates in Local Jails. So ask yourself, why? I mean, they're going to ask the other questions about, sex and age and, status, nationality, all those kind of things. They'll ask you all of those questions. But the thing is, transgender people have a higher rate of incidents of violence applied against them than anyone in the general population of this country. And also the same thing within the prison system. But yet they really don't want to know that data. Yeah, I think what they're trying to do is say, we don't collect the data, they don't exist. If we don't collect the data, then they don't exist. If they don't do the research, then they don't exist. Well, guess where that is coming from? Well, last year I spent episode after episode after episode trying to tell people that Project 2025, the forward to Project 2025 lays it all out in the forward. And they don't have to go very far in the forward either. You go to bottom of page 4 to top of page 5. And that section on page 5, you'll see all the references to stopping all research that have to do with transgender people or gender identity issues, stopping all the research because, if we can't count them, they're not real, right? Wrong. But anyway, that was part of it. But right down underneath that part about stopping all the research, they also equated all the transgender people with pornography and said they all should be in jail. That should actually scare the living crap out of this country. Not just trans people, but the entire country should be pissed about that. Because this administration is putting all of those things that's in that forward to Project 2025's mandate for leadership. They're putting them on steroids and implementing them like that without regard to anything at all. Processes are done. So that's what they're doing in the Department of Justice. They're stopping the process of gathering data on gender identity and crimes committed against transgender people and non-binary people and gender non-conforming people. If you stop all the study from it, then you never know if there's a problem because of that. And you'll never know if they're targeted because of that. And you also can go, well, look, we don't have any of those people in this country. That we have nothing here that shows who they are. Really, that's what it's all about. And then they can go ahead and say, you know, this is all pornographic. That's what Kevin Roberts wrote, the president of the Heritage Foundation, in that forward to that thing. He wrote that in there, equating gender identity, gender. I hate the word ideology with gender because I am not an ideology. Are you an ideology? Nope. I've checked. I don't fit the definition of an ideology. Nope, not there. Let me see. Anything in here? Nope. No ideologies hidden here. I am me, period. Take it or leave it. Yeah, and if you don't like the voice, well, that's on you. The voice is old Marine Corps. And I use it all the time, and I get a lot of kicks out of it. I have the biggest fun out of doing it, too. But anyway, so back to this thing with the Department of Justice and the stopping of research. See, this didn't just show up at the Department of Justice. They're pulling everything that has anything to do with what's going on with transgender Americans. They don't want to know. The National Institute of Health, under the Health and Human Services Department, removed all research that have to do with LGBT or LGB plus whatever, and all of it, as well as all things transgender. The Defense Health Agency, Defense Health Agency under the Department of Defense has stopped all gender affirming care. I think it was yesterday that they actually directed the department, whatever it is, Defense Health Agency, to begin that process, to stop it. And they also ordered all the transgender active duty soldiers and sailors and Marines and Air Force and, Coast Guard people, guardsmen, and the Guardians in the Space Force. They asked them to turn their uniforms in and be processed out. Most of those people bought their own uniforms. I mean, that's kind of crazy. I mean, when I went in, I had to buy mine. They were given some, but at some point you had to buy your own and go down to the PX or whatever and buy your own uniform stuff. Well, maybe it was just the officer side, I guess. It might have been that. I don't know. I don't remember Anyway, they give you the initial set and you got to buy the rest. So, I mean, this stuff is going on across the board. But it's not going to stop there, right? I mean, you'd have to be really dense to think that it's just going to be right there. We're not going to do any more than that. Really? If you believe that, put a comment over there. And we need to talk. Do we ever? Look, this stuff has got one goal in mind. This is all coming from, and if you don't believe what I'm saying about where this is coming from, dig into it. Look at it. Go find out. This is coming from the far-right fundamentalist religious people. Now, you notice I didn't say just Christian, because it's also Muslim. It's also fundamentalist Jewish people. These people, these fundamentalists, regardless of religion, are running this administration. They are the ones pulling all the strings. Heritage Foundation, President Kevin Roberts, president of a Catholic church or Catholic school before taking over this, coming out of Texas. Yes, he came out of Texas. Yep. Then ran a Catholic school and then Heritage Foundation. These people are in places of power and influence, and they are directing this, and they've had this target on gays and lesbians and trans people. This is not new. They've had that target on this population since at least 1950. They're the ones who forced out the gays and lesbians out of federal government under the Lavender Scare because, they were security risk. Oh, my God. So it's been continuing and it's accelerating. It's just like the way they went after Roe v. Wade. They've had a 55-year plan working through it. And it wasn't always a solid laid out strategy, but they knew they knew what they wanted to do, and they kept influencing things. It would go up and down. The influence would change. People would get in different positions of power. New presidents come in. The president could appoint Supreme Court justices, and then they could get Roe v. Wade turned over. Well, guess what? They can do the same thing with marriage equality. They can do the same thing with those LGBT families who have kids. They can do all those things, and they will, folks. If you don't get out there and fight and you help me get the word out, then, I mean, they're going to do these things. It's been in their bloods. Many of these people who are doing all this stuff, they weren't even born when the first people were trying to get these things turned around. It's crazy, crazy. They're not stopping with that. You think they've got one thing in front of them that you're going to just latch onto, and that's it. But look, you have to think of, what do you know about President Trump, President Donald Trump? Now, let me just say this before I jump in and ream him another one. There's a lot I agree with what he has done. A lot. I do agree that the tariffs needed to be there in order to level that playing field that had been systematically built against us over 70 years after World War II. We needed to do that. That reset needed to occur. It may be harsh. It may be unrealistic sometimes for some people to expect, get through it all. But that's what that's all about. And some of this stuff with illegal immigrants, and particularly illegal immigrants who have committed violent crimes against Americans, in my humble opinion, they don't have any due process. I'm kicking them out of the country. I'll send them to El Salvador. I'll send them to Rwanda, anywhere. They don't belong here. So I agree with President Trump on some of those things. Not all of it, but some of it. My perspective on all of this stuff is very, it's gray. It's not black. It's not white. It's gray. And actually in between there is just a bunch of color. The whole rainbow's in the middle of all of that. Okay. So the part about reaming him another one, though, has to do with the way they're treating trans people and LGBT people, the way they're treating minorities in this country, the way they're trying to make you believe that they're focused on meritocracy and getting rid of DEI, but no, you know darn well that is not what's going on. Right? I mean, really? Come on. You want to clear out all of the federal agencies and the employees within those federal agencies. You want to implement Schedule F again in a new version so that you can reclassify those employees as at-will employees so you can fire them. And then you're going to put in the people who everybody out there is going to go, we're going to fire a bunch, but we're going to bring in some people, to they've got the skill and the knowledge to do what needs to be done there. And they're getting that job because of meritocracy. No, this is kleptocracy. This is the same kind of stuff, the nepotism stuff that Andrew Jackson started and when he was president. He was the first popularly elected president. And that's what he did. He decided he was going to put in all of his favorite friends, family, and all the different positions of power. It was a spoils system. He won. He could do what he wanted in it. Trump won. He believes he can do what he wanted in it too. But in 1882, somewhere around there, plus or minus a year or two, the spoils system was replaced with meritocracy. But it's not as good as it could be, but it's not as bad as it was then. It's changed a little. I mean, you still get a lot of that in place, the nepotism, the spoil systems all there, and everybody's just latching onto it and going, I want that job. I've been around. I know somebody. That will happen in every business, organization, or government in the world. That's human nature. But at least you got rid of the title called spoils system, because that was worse. That was definitely far worse than this quasi-meritocratic system, okay? It's not really entirely that. And you don't want it to be that either. You know why? You know why you don't want it to be that? Because there are some really good people who may not necessarily match up to all of those qualifications you think you've got to have in that job, but they could do it better because they're more highly motivated, more driven. They have greater purpose and passion for what they're doing. If you just stick in people who are only qualified to be there, then you're going to lose the passion, the intensity, the drive to do good. Now, yes, you'll end up with problems. I mean, nothing is, I've said it 100 times, nothing's black and white, folks. Nothing's black and white. So I know I've talked and talked and talked. I started out by saying, talking about the place where I'm from right here in Williamson, West Virginia, and ATV trails, and went through some of the different things that's happening today. Administration's attack on LGBT families, they stopped collecting the crime data for gender identity and gender dysphoric people. Geez, it's just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And I did point out to you that you need to find a downloadable document of Project 2025. Just read the forward, because there's your outline of what's coming. There's your outline of how this is working out. I know Trump said he wasn't going to do anything about that. He didn't know who those people were. He lied to you. He lied to the country, and you fell for it. Or maybe you didn't care. But he's doing it. Every bit of it. Every bit of it. Just follow it. Go into the forward and read it. And with that, I'll come back and do the ranting and raving again this evening on the Path Forward at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Thank you.